Hello everybody, welcome to our Pro Tactics segment. Today our guest is a 5-time winner on tour level events, 9-time Classic qualifier, 2-time FLW Championship qualifier, over $2 million in career earnings. Please welcome Kelly Jordon to the podcast. Kelly, how are you?
Hey Keith, good to see you. Been a while.
It has been a while. It's good to see you too. Really excited about getting a chance to talk to some old friends. I don't mean old friends, I just mean friends I haven't talked to for a while.
Well, we all getting older every year, right?
We sure are. We sure are. So I wanted to bring you into this segment because I know that you can solve some problems for me. I'm out at my lake, local lake, and the fish are schooling all around me, and I can't get them to bite. It's the most frustrating thing. I feel like I'm chasing fool's gold out there. What can we do to make those late summertime fish that are schooling, what can we do to make them bite for us?
Well, it's always kind of tough that time of year. And one of the reasons is because the shad spawn happened late spring, early summer. So a lot of times what you have is a lot of really, really small bait.
Yep.
And it's really hard to match the hatch. Get a fly rod with a streamer out there, and go to town. So you can see all these, it's like being in the ocean, plenty of water everywhere and not a drop to drink.
Right.
And, fishing for as long as I have and being a fishing guide in Texas and fishing the trail and seeing this in a lot of places, there's a lot of little tricks that everybody has developed to try to figure out how to catch those bass that are really tough to catch. And my favorite way to catch them when they're doing that time of year is on top water.
Okay, well, let's get into that. When you talk about top water, are you talking about a popper? Are you talking about a buzzing or spinning type of thing or bait, or are you talking about a walking kind of bait?
Well, they all have their place. Everybody has their favorite, but my favorite for schooling fish is a walking type bait, simply because it covers water. It emulates a bait fish fling pretty well, and you can also call them up pretty good on a walking bait after they go back down if they're not still schooling on the surface. But and the ultimate bait for that is one of my all-time favorite topwaters. It's the Lucky Craft gunfish. Often copied, but never duplicated. It is kind of the king of that, kind of slender walking bait that actually has a little bit of a flat front that pops as well. So it kind of does it all. It's tail weighted. Casting distance is key when you have the situation you're talking about. And chasing these schooling bass in late summer, early fall is a lot of fun, but it can be frustrating. So you just want to maximize everything you can when you have that opportunity. So, and my go-to bait for that is a gunfish, no doubt.
So, I'm going to guess. Okay, so that's what I fall for. I see those fish up there, and I start trying to cast at things. I'm going to guess that I'm going to assume, I should say, that the long cast is pretty critical. Is that right?
Yeah. So that goes to your tackle. Typically, you want to, I use a 7.5 foot medium heavy action ducket fishing rod. That's what I use. It's kind of heavier than you would think for a normal topwater application, but this is a special kind of situation where you're trying to maximize your cast. So the problem that you may have with a longer rod like that is you can overwork a walking bait, simply because when you go to twitch your bait, since the rod is longer, your rod tip moves farther than it would on a 6.5 foot rod, so it can cause you to kind of overpower your bait. So keep that in mind. Not that critical, but it's just something to think about. But maximize your casting distance. Super smooth reels, high speed retrieve ratios, of course, so you can get it back in fast if they come back over here. And braided line, key. 20 pound at the minimum, I would say. I typically use 30 or 40, 50 pound on the top end on braided line. That also maximizes your cast. And I would also say a line dressing helps a lot too. I use the Kevin Van Dam little silicone spray that he has. Not a sponsor, it just works like a champ. spray it on braided line. It's a dream for braided line. That's the combo that allows you to maximize your cast and hit those fish that, are just out of range of your buddy in the boat with you.
Okay, now you mentioned something really interesting in your opening statement. You talked about trying to match the hatch. One size doesn't fit all, right?
Nope. No, and some lakes you may have plenty of big bait fish, and they may be chasing big bait fish, and they're not that size specific. If you have that situation, you're fortunate in the late summer, early fall, because they'll hit just about anything and really aggressive. A lot of places, like I said, you still have a normal size shad, but you have a lot of the young of the year, the freshly hatched shad, if you will. A lot of them are the size of your thumbnail. They really are.
Yeah.
You'll see them out there, and I see people casting different topwaters into them and different baits, and the fish will just blow up all around your topwater and not get it. And they're like, how can they not bite my topwater? Well, they're that keyed into that size of a bait that sometimes it can be very frustrating. There are days when they'll hit anything, but typically, especially on pressured lakes, they really get dialed into that. You see people out there with, clear bobbers trying to throw a fly behind it on a spinning rod. You see people put front runners in front of their topwater to try to get something smaller out there. Some people put the old trick when I was growing up was you put a dropper string off your back hook and had a little bitty crappie jig behind your topwater. Now, that's kind of a fire drill if you were to hook one on that, but there's so many little tricks that people try for that. One thing that is kind of I don't know if it's a secret or not. A lot of people forget about it, but the way that you can get around that with a topwater, and I go around people that are throwing topwaters and they're not catching them, and I'm catching them every cast, throwing at the same fish. And one of the keys is in the fall, if you have a size differential, is to use a clear topwater.
A clear bait. So Kelly has just dropped two absolute nuggets on us. I hope you paid attention to what he just said. I think the idea about trailing a crappie jig behind a topwater bait, that is pretty amazing. And I feel a little embarrassed that I never heard of that before. I've heard about the front runners, but I never thought about throwing a crappie jig off the back. That's something that I think I'm going to look at trying. And then the other thing you just talked about was throwing a clear bait, because the clear bait doesn't have the large profile because it's clear, right?
Well, I think it fools them. I don't think they can see it that well. There's some splashing going on,
Right.
And that's kind of a key, a little feather tail. This is a clear topwater. A lot of companies make clear baits. We actually have a color of Lucky Craft called Lake Murray Clear. It doesn't even have any sparkle. It's just clear plastic. It's not even there. It has a little bitty touch of light green paint along the top of it. But the key to that is just fooling the bass when they're frenzied like that. I think the thought is that they can't see it as well, and they can mistake it, even though it's a much bigger bait, that they can mistake it for a smaller bait or maybe a couple of them. And let me tell you what, it is a secret at times. It works like a champ. If you remember, there was a topwater when I was a young kid, and I remember it was a full Lexan piece of clear Lexan. It almost looked like a popper, but it had like a Lucky 13 sloped front. It was called a Near Nothing. You remember that bait?
I don't think I remember that one.
It was called a Near Nothing, and it was clear. And I guess it looked like there was nothing there. And that was, man, the old timers knew about it back then, and we've kind of forgotten that. But that's one of my little keys. I don't tell many people, but I'm willing to, share that off because, hey, man, we just want people to have fun out there fishing.
Good stuff. Really, really, really good stuff. So you've guided. I take it you probably don't do much guiding anymore, but let's say that you were taking a guide client out tomorrow on one of your nearby Texas lakes. What would you be doing?
I have a couple favorite lakes around the house that this time of year they are really starting that schooling routine like you talked about. I'd get them, a 6.5 to 7.5 foot rod. If they weren't proficient with a bait caster, I'd get them a spinning rod. And of course, we all know braided line is almost synonymous with spinning rods nowadays.
Yeah.
Bass fishermen, so it's not a big jump. Works great. Braided line floats. So it's really good for a topwater. You can cast them out. There's also no stretch, so you can hook them out there, way out there on the end of your cast. Because if you remember back in the monofilament days, if you hooked a bass way out on a long distance cast on a big topwater, he was going to jump once or twice and probably throw it right back at you.
That's right. That's
it's
right.
Great, like we're able to hook them way out there. But spinning rod is just fine. And of course, you can cast it a mile with a spinning rod as well. And I'd have 2 sizes. Now this is my 1-2 combo. And typically on these lakes around the house, this is all I take this time of year. I mean, because I have some lakes that they school all day long.
Yeah.
Pretty much from now until middle of October, early November. And you can just chase them around just like you would white bass, but they're largemouth. It's awesome. And these are 2 different sizes. This is a Gunfish 115. This is my preference because it's bigger, a lot bigger. This is a 95. It is smaller. Now, if I can get them to hit the 115, I'll throw this. Yeah. 2 reasons. It's bigger, I can throw it farther, and it has bigger hooks if I get a great big one to bite it. And it's just easier to throw a long ways. The 95 is very slender. Really, it gets more bites pretty much all the time anyway, but when you're using a clear, you can get away with the bigger one. If I can't get them to hit the bigger one, I go the 95, and the clear 95 is pretty much game over. And you can throw it almost as far, but that's my 1-2. And then, there's other stuff you can do as well. You can always have your drop shots at the ready because typically these schooling bass will go back down to whatever their preferred depth is. A lot of times it's 15, 20, 25, maybe even deeper than that. And typically if you're around them, you'll be able to see them down there on your electronics. And you can drop off and drop down and get them. That's one thing, but my experience, if you have them schooling really well, as soon as you start to do that, they're going to come up schooling right over here and you're going to drop that rod down, pick up your topwater and be a little bit late and trying to take off with the trolling motor. You'll be dragging your drop shot back there. And then one will bite your drop shot and pull your rod out of the water, and then you won't have your drop shot.
I was just gonna ask you for those moments when the fish stay down for a while, how you would go at them, and you answered that question for us.
Drop shot is deadly. The fish head spins, the horsey head deals with the little, either the small Kitechs, Kitech and those other a lot of those companies make really small ones now. 2.3 inches to 3.3 inches, probably a great size, emulates that small bait fish. But really, in all honesty, in these lakes around my house where they school big time and are biting these real small bait fish, they kind of will bite those, but they will bite a top water much better.
So we were talking about when they don't come up. You talked about throwing a drop shot at them. The thing that I find frustrating about schooling fish is that they're not structure oriented very often. They could be anywhere. And I think a lot of anglers are tied to the bank. Some more advanced anglers are tied to those humps out there and those long points and stuff like that. But they're not going to necessarily be there. They're not necessarily tied to a depth. They're just chasing the bait. So if you don't know where they are, do birds help? How do you find them?
Absolutely. Birds always, and not everywhere is going to have birds, but birds will always steer you toward bait. Yeah. And that's the key. The bass are going to be where the bait are. And that's one reason why the late summer, early fall, late August, September, October can be a really frustrating time to fish because the bass, a lot of lakes, they just turn to nomads. And like you said, they just go out in open water and swim wherever the currents take them. And they act like stripers kind of.
It's exactly what they act like. Yeah. It
can be very frustrating. And it's a tough time of year. But if you just take it for what it is and you're fortunate enough to have a lake where they do chase them good enough to come up schooling pretty regular, keep your eyes open, watch for birds. If seagulls are the best, second best would be terns or cormorants because they're around bait. But if you have a lot of seagulls around, those are the birds that will be on actively feeding fish more often than any of the other birds I know of. And if you are near the bank or whatever, and you see blue heron is the best fisherman out there. If you see one blue heron in an area, there's something going on. If you see 2 in an area, you need to really pay attention. If you see 3 or more in one area, there is something going on, and you better stop and look around and see what's going on.
And it's so funny to hear you say that because I've always felt like a blue heron was good luck.
Absolutely. Yeah, if old blue's around, it's a good day.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Well, Kelly, I really appreciate you coming on and doing this. I feel like we've reconnected after several years. What do you got going? What's coming up for you next?
Well, we just had our last FLW Super Tournament, which was really cool. Justin Lucas won that event out of Sandusky Bay, Ohio. Caught a bunch of great big smallmouth. I actually got a check in that. It's my first check on a pure smallmouth tournament in my career. I finally bit the bullet and put nothing but spinning rods and drop shots on my deck, which was very painful, but I did it. And my good buddy Todd Faircloth came over and patted me on the back. He said, "Man, I'm proud of you. You finally did it." But hey, that's between friends give each other a hard time a lot. But so that's over. We have a few Major League Fishing Cup events coming up this fall. And, it's just that time of year talking to sponsors. You're looking at, getting your another boat, looking at, different sponsors, looking forward to the schedule coming out for the next season so you can make your plans for the next year. And hopefully we're, kind of through the narrows of this coronavirus situation. Everybody has taken to heart the social distancing and other measures to, try to do the best they can to do their part to, not spread and do safety measures, but at the same time still compete. So we're figuring that out pretty well, how the parameters we can do that. So I'm very hopeful we're going to have a full season next year. And that's the best thing we can hope for. Another great thing that came out of this whole situation that I think is, I think a lot more people got back into the sport of fishing that hadn't fished in a long time. And I don't know, around home, the lakes were packed for months on end. And I think that's one of the greatest things because people are reconnecting with the outdoors, probably spend a lot more time with their families and friends. So that's the silver lining I see of this whole situation. God bless all the people who are having a hard time, the people who got sick with the coronavirus. And I know some unfortunately passed away, but this is an illness and hopefully we can all get through this. And hey, we get a handle on it and maybe they'll find a cure, who knows? But looking forward to a great 2021 because I think most of us are ready for 2020 to be done with.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, Kelly, you get used to hearing from me because I'll be in touch a lot more often, I promise. I enjoy these conversations a great deal. And thanks for being with us today.
Hey, thank you, Keith. Take care, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Take it easy.